Alright, so this is what you're going to get, a spreadsheet just like this. It's going to have all the questions that are relevant to your topics already pulled out of the list of 2,000 we got from the ABTS. You can see on this one there's about 80 or so questions, all allocated to TS11 and to TS12. So the first thing you're going to want to do is expand your formula bar, because a lot of these cells include data that wraps around, and the only way you're going to be able to read it is if you make the formula bar a little bit larger. There's a number of columns. All of them have the same columns. First one is error codes. We'll talk about that in a second. This column is where you're going to write down the topic that you believe this question should be applied to. This column right here shows where we thought the question should go, but cut us a little slack. We went through over 2,000 questions and we may not have gotten them right on the first pass. The question ID, don't worry about that. Just make sure it doesn't change. The question level, if you think a question should be basic, when it's advanced, you can change it, but to be honest, don't worry about this one either, because we're going to give them the questions all together. We're not going to separate them by advanced or basic. This is the stem. This is where the actual question exists, and you can see them down here. These are the various responses that are available. Not all of them have an E, but all of them have A through B. Here are the answers. Some of them we already thought were wrong, and so we put this little note in here, C not D. And then finally, this is the critique. This is where the discussion is. So this is what you're going to need to do. For each question, you're going to need to read the stem. You're going to need to read the responses, make your way through them all. You're going to need to read the critique. And then based on the critique, you're going to make sure that the right answer was selected. If the incorrect answer has been identified, so if in this question the correct answer isn't C, then go ahead and change it and highlight that square green, right like that. That way we'll know that you changed it. Don't worry about putting in a new column or anything like that. Just change it and highlight it in green. The other thing you might have to do is, if you read through the stem, you'll see here 2 frames from a high resolution CTR shown. If the question requires an image, go ahead and highlight the frame again using orange. So come up here and just snap in an orange. We need you to do that because it's becoming very difficult to get the images from the ABTS. They're not organized very well. So we need to know which questions require an image so Darcy can go back and find those images and connect them to the correct questions. So unfortunately, a lot of the questions do have some errors. About 20 to 30% are either misallocated or just downright wrong. And that's what we need you to do in this column over here. As you go through each question, if the question is fine, if it's allocated correctly, just take the allocation and cut and paste it right over here. Just take it, just say copy, and then paste it right over there. If, as you're going through this, you notice that the question doesn't belong in your topic, then put in a 1 over here. And if you could, tell us what topic you think it should go to. If you can't figure out which topic it should go to, just write down what you think it addresses. Just tell us, if this is actually a lung cancer question, just put in lung cancer or something like that. Some questions can be used in 2 topics simultaneously. If you think that, just go ahead and type in a 2 over here and tell us again what topic you think it might be useful for. It may be yours, so you may just put in TS12 and say that this TS11 question could also be used in TS12. That's fine. But if you think that this question could also be used in lung cancer, then go ahead and just put in lung cancer. And the section editors will figure out what topic it should go into. If the question just simply uses old data and just isn't relevant anymore, and the most common place we saw that was on staging questions. There's a lot of questions in there in the lung cancer and the esophageal section that use old staging systems. They just can't be updated, and so those questions should be identified with a 3, and those questions are going to be dropped. And then the last error code is 4. and that's an unusable or a missing stem or a poorly written question. If you run into any of those, give it a chance. Try and fix it if you can, because it's not like we got a lot of these questions lying around for each topic. So if it's a simple fix and you think you can fix it, go ahead and fix it and then salvage the question. But if it's just totally unsalvageable, go ahead and put a 4 in here, and we're going to end up dropping those questions. One of the other errors that we found is because of the way the ABTS stored these questions and then put them into the spreadsheets, some of the questions have this odd gibberish for anything that was written in italics. Now, some of them you can figure out, like this one, acute pneumonia, most commonly I think is going to be streptococcal pneumonia. But if you can't figure it out, then put in a 4 and we'll get rid of the question. But again, do your best to try and figure out what the gibberish is. Like this one, I think is just going to have to be dropped because every single response is gibberish. But on one like this, you might be able to figure out what they're talking about here and just go ahead and type it in. Don't worry about putting it in italics. We don't want to lose it again, but just type it in so we can salvage the question. To give you an idea of what this is going to look like when it's done, I just want to show you one last thing before I close. This is the curriculum as it's running right now. I have to tell you, it's pretty amazing. We have right now 60% of the residents as of 3 days ago have logged in at least once, and 85% of them are logging in multiple times. In fact, 40%, or nearly a quarter of all the residents in the country, are logging in more frequently than once a week. This is pretty incredible considering it's been less than 2 months. If you look at SCORE, it took them 3 years and multiple millions of dollars before they got a penetration that even comes close to what we've achieved in the first 2 months. So you guys should be really proud of yourself. This is a pretty impressive undertaking, and we did it on a shoestring budget. The questions, though, is something they're already asking about, so I just sort of wanted to show you how they're going to fit in. We've already sort of put it in as a test in the disorders of the diaphragm section because I finished those questions. And what they're going to have, the resident's going to see this. It's going to say, you think you know this material? Test your knowledge with a quick question. When they click on this, it's going to go ahead and open up a quiz like this. Every time they reattempt the quiz, they get asked one question drawn from random from the pool of questions that we've already identified. I'm not going to read this, but essentially you answer it, and then they say next, and if they think they're done, they submit, and they instantly are given not only the correct answer, but also the discussion and the critique that they can review. The beauty of this is faculty can do this on morning conferences and simply go straight to the questions. And every time the faculty clicks on it, a new randomly selected question is going to show up. So I can't impress upon you how important what we're doing is and how well received it's going to be. Residents are already asking about questions. The ones who are using it a lot would really love to see this, and I think faculty are going to think that this is an amazing addition as well. Thanks very much. As soon as you get this done, mail the file back to Rebecca or Darcy or myself so we can start inputting the questions into the Moodle course. Thanks again.